When I made a decision to come here, I had no evidence to back up. I didn't have any proof. I couldn't explain even why I wanted to leave. And it's okay if you feel compelled to do something. You don't always have to justify that with, good enough sounding reasons or logic. If you're compelled to do something, and of course, not hurting others or doing, committing
Mm-hmm.
crimes and all sorts of
Right.
things, obviously. But if you're compelled to do something, you don't need a reason or you don't need evidence or you don't need to justify something. I had no idea why, like, well, kind of, sort of vaguely, why I wanted to do it. But did I know that this was the journey that I was going to take? No, of course not. Right. But don't let that hold you back. If you feel like there's a sign that, something that's keep, nagging inside of your head, if you're compelled to do something, you don't need a reason.
Each week, I'm joined by my co-host Claudia Cuevas, licensed marriage and family therapist, as we explore the stories, lessons, and emotional realities behind transformation. Because reinvention isn't just about changing our circumstances. It's about understanding yourself. It's about healing. It's about letting go of who you thought you had to be so you can become who you were always meant to be. Pull up a chair and join us at the table. This is Elevate Within. Welcome back to Elevate Within. I'm your host, Sandy Davis.
And I'm your co-host, Claudia J. Cuevas.
This week, we sat down with Maiko Sakai for a fascinating conversation about culture, conditioning, identity, entrepreneurship, and the courage it takes to trust yourself again when there is no evident things that will work out. Maiko shared her journey of leaving Japan at 17, navigating life and business in the United States, challenging beliefs she inherited about success and conformity, and learning to trust her own inner knowings even when the paths ahead weren't clear. She also introduced a powerful framework about transactional, transformational, and transcending work, and spoke openly about her evolving relationship with self-doubt. Today, Claudia and I are going to go into a deeper dive into some of the emotional and psychological themes behind Michael's story. Let's get into it. So, Claudia, what stood out to you the most with Michael's story?
Well, I'm super excited about this conversation with Maiko and listening to her experience. And so if you haven't listened to our listeners, please press pause, go back and listen to it because I think you're going to really resonate. And for you and I think it's going to really hit home for us.
Yes. Yep.
Um, w- One of the things that I thought was very similar to my life experience is, this is my bread and butter. I am a first generation, Mexican American with immigrant parents that don't speak the language. And so what she was talking about, like the cultural conditioning, right? And then it brought up a lot of stuff from her. I think she was told over and over again while she was in the United States that she had to stay in her lane and that she couldn't be out of scope, right? But it made me think a lot about the reason why that took her a while to kind of like catch on to what was happening was her culture conditioning from Japan, right? She really struggled with feeling like she was behind and feeling like she wasn't caught up. And I think it wasn't until she like around 12 that she really was able to feel that
Yeah.
she was like, okay, I've kind of gotten the hang of this. I'm not. I mean, it just makes me think of like, gosh, she just was such a creative person, right? Her brain was developing how it needed to develop. It was not able to conform to the standard of, Japan and what is expected of her as a woman. I mean, the part where she was talking about like she could be an executive and still have to like serve tea and stuff.
Yeah, that took me out on that one. Yeah, that
So
took me out.
your face was like, what?
You saw my face? Can you
I did.
imagine like you in my office or I'm hosting a
No,
meeting
I'm
and you
signing
sitting
$1 million
down?
deals and I gotta spend it.
Yeah. And they'd
But
be like,
again, right?
tea.
Those are cultural things, right? But as a first generation Latina, right? Who has, you know, 4 degrees, specializations. And I didn't get married till I was 34 because I was holding on. I was holding on to,
Hold.
I'm holding on. And immediately being told, did you serve your husband already? He said, did he eat already? Did you serve him? And literally carrying a plate in my hands and going, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
Right? Like the conditioning, right? It also makes me think of, this is something as people of color living in the United States that we always struggle with. It's the duality of our cultures, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have a saying in Spanish, especially for people who live or grew up in the United States. It's called ni de aquí, ni de allá. So we don't ever feel that we're truly from the United States or that we truly belong to Mexico, right? Or El Salvador or another country, right? Because there's such a duality where we're having to really, there's this fine line that we're living, right? We're like in between, kind of walking in between the two cultures. And so we have to consider, right, how that also contributes to a lot of our burnout,
And
right?
code switching. For me, it was code switching. You have to be one
Yes.
way in corporate America. And then when you get home or around the friends or family, you are someone else, or maybe that's really you. Like I never, like the lines became blurred.
Yes. And so is that a superpower? Absolutely. Can that contribute to a lot of our burnout? Absolutely, right? So not only do we have to consider our own culture um conditioning, right? So where did we grow up, right? Um our parents, are they immigrants, first generation? Where are they? What's our
Mm-hmm.
gender? And what did that system that we come from tell us about what our gender role is supposed to be? And how are we fighting that? Or how are we conforming to that? Or how are we code switching from, I'm an executive at home, but my expectation when I get home is still to like tend to my husband, right?
Yep. Cater.
Um, yeah. What role has religion played in your upbringing? Because that's a whole different culture, right?
Yeah.
So I'm Mexican American, but I grew up Baptist, evangelical, Pentecostal. I did not grow up Catholic, right? So even from then, there's like a subgroup that I have, right? Because most people think I'm Catholic. And do I know a lot of yes, because my culture is intertwined with Catholicism. So I know a lot about it. I lived in Mexico. I went to Catholic school because
Yeah.
if you went to
Yeah.
private school, you went to Catholic school, right?
Right.
Our language, did we adopt the language? When did the next generation start losing the language that we're using, right? And even if you don't speak the language of your parents, it is intertwined, right? My nephews who are second generation, they speak very little Spanish, right? Not I'm not proud of that, but they speak very like, but they will say like, "Oh, I need my chonies and I need some chanclas," and like it's sprinkled, it's peppered into the culture, right?
You
Um,
are right. Here's the thing. I used to tell people my mom is Puerto Rican and Italian and Russian Jew. And my father is Black. My mom spoke Italian, but was also fluent in Spanish because her father was Spanish. I was not allowed to learn Spanish. My mother did not want it, and I'm taking it, my father did not want it. It was just like, you can't, not here. You're not going to grow up and have all these different languages, English only. So I used to tell people I know enough Spanish to get me through a bodega transaction. That's about it. That's it.
well, it also
Got the
right,
whistle.
yeah, but where did you grow up,
In the
right?
Bronx and Yonkers.
Yeah.
So
So
in the
what were
Bronx,
you
Little
exposed
Italy, and
to?
then in Yonkers, which was,
Yeah,
they advertised for mixed race couples to move to Yonkers because
yeah,
my mom was talking about how they kept getting evicted once they found out my father was Black and living
right,
there.
right. Right. All that stuff, like socioeconomics. Like,
Hmm.
did your immigrant parents come with money? Because some people do. right? Depending on if they're coming from a war zone or they're coming, they're coming as refugees, or if they're coming because it's not doing well in their country and they're coming with very little, starting from the bottom, and like all that stuff affects us, right? And so we have to be really conscious of owning the parts that are part of us and then really understanding that that becomes an asset to us as opposed to it
Mm,
being a roadblock. Some some do, right? Some see it as a roadblock. And is it harder for us? Absolutely.
yep.
Is it harder for us because we're people of color and we're women?
Hmm.
Yes. Yes. Just why we're doing our own businesses, right? But like,
Right. Yeah. My mom used to always say, and at first I was mad. Now I understood why. She used to always tell me, Sandy, you have two strikes against you. You're a woman and you're black. Not even like Latino mix. She just said, she was like, people, when they look at you, they're only going to see you as black. She was like, so you're going to have to work harder. You're going to have to perform better. She was like, you're going to be going through the grunt of it. And it wasn't until I really got into my career and started um, becoming or on the path to becoming successful, I was like, damn, she was right. It is harder.
yeah, yeah. And the sad part is that there's this part where it makes us feel that we have to choose,
Hmm.
right? Again, I grew up I was born in 73. I grew up in the 80s here. There was a lot of push in assimilation, right? Assimilate. Here in California and like all the border towns, like Texas and stuff, back in the 50s, you would get a ticket if they heard you speaking Spanish.
Wow, I did not know that.
Oh yeah, it was there was you get a ticket for like, like a speeding ticket. You would get a ticket because there was so much emphasis on integration, right? So let's integrate, let's get you, let's assimilate you. You're no longer you're no longer your culture, you're no longer your country. You're only now you're American, right? Like, you're American. And it's like they never they have never let us forget we're Mexican,
You know
ever.
what's crazy? A fact, uh, the United States does not have a native language.
Not officially, right? Because we have Native Americans who speak, but
Right.
there's a
But
lot of
they're
different
saying for
nations.
English, it's just like, no, we don't have
And
our language.
how much, not to get political, but how much have they every single time try to put it on the ballot to make English the official language, which is
Hmm.
okay. But you also have to recognize that your streets, your streets are different,
Especially in California.
right? Like,
Especially in
right? Like,
California, though, in Spanish. Majority. The
yes,
towns. La Jolla.
San Francisco,
Yep.
La
I mean, I'm
Puente.
I'm one of those ignorant ones. Before I moved to California, I was like, yeah, La Jolla. And they was just like, Sandy, it's La Jolla. I was like, oh, my bad. My bad.
But go to different, depending on where, the majority of people land. I mean, there's it. And so the part of, now there's just this, as opposed to assimilation, but like this cultural integration and celebration. I mean, we're constantly fighting for that. They're trying to pull us back, right? they're right now
Right.
they're trying to pull us back. But you cannot. So there was, for us as Mexicans, as Latinos, especially in border towns, it's impossible to assimilate because we have a constant influx of like recent immigrants, right? So the first generation population is never going to go away. It's going to be very difficult, which we border Mexico. It's just here. So, our experience is a bit different than like the African American experience where they were brought to this country. They were slaves. I mean, they were stripped from their culture. They were stripped from their names. I mean, it's a very different traumatic experience for them, right? That we carry along with us, right? So, there's a lot of push to like finding where, trying to adopt some of that culture, trying to like reclaim um the connection to their culture kind of thing. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
whole different kind of like conversation on trauma when it comes, but the culture's there, right? Like think about soul food and think about like the things that they brought into our to us to eating barbecue, all that stuff is like it's there, right? They were able to save as much as it, food stories is always the way that we kind of like preserve our culture too.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to ask Michael, really because of the Asian culture, there was
Mhm.
also influx of them coming in. And there was always that perception of like, well, we'll let the Asians in because
They're
they're
smart.
educated
Yeah.
and they're innovative and,
Uh-huh.
they're safe. But at the same token, if you go back into history, they were, I believe, working in California and during the gold mine, and they experienced their own racism, and the same thing that the Hispanics, the blacks went through, and then I think it was the Mexicans or the Spanish, and then the Asians.
Uh-huh.
So, one of the questions I wished I asked her was like, besides her going through her struggles when she said, when she had to answer the phones and it was hard
Uh-huh.
with her accent, and
Uh-huh.
she heard the people that she worked with was like, crane calling her
Yeah.
and, making her kind of
Uncomfortable.
stumble. Yeah, making her stumble
Mhm.
on her words, and for her to constantly having to reinvent herself
Uh-huh.
when she's a Japanese woman,
Uh-huh. Mhm. And how
wondering what they go through.
yeah, how difficult that was for her, right? And so really it becomes about, she's very successful and she has, you know, she has outdone whatever the expectation was of her when like if she would have said in Japan, like she's really kind of taking on ownership of her personality type, right? But for me, I really felt like, gosh, this is part of who she was. Like she was going to be that person. She was going to have some of those encounters and struggles wherever she went. Right.
Hmm.
Yes. Is it much more highlighted because now she had to learn a different language, but she would have had to probably learn a different language in Japan too. Right.
Right, right.
In order to be successful and stuff. I think what really resonated to me with her was how obvious her brain leaned towards creativity, right?
Hmm.
And so it wasn't that she was like a slow bloomer or that she was delayed. It was that her brain was being developed in a much different way, which was in the creative space, right? So she was very observant because she didn't talk soon. I'm sure she was like able to see colors and different things, but she said you couldn't be an artist like unless you were like the best artist and
Right.
like like that was not going to be the expectation, right? The expectation like going to finance, going to like
Hmm.
computers, going to technology because that's where we thrive. And to her, her brain was probably really kind of like sinking in into noticing all those different things. And so now for her to have ownership of that and be able to like help other women tap into that and her to create her own business, I think it's amazing, right? She has to kind of like embrace that for herself.
Yeah. For most women, women like us, women of color, Asian women, what's the biggest hurdle in your opinion when it comes to we identify code switching? Being how we need to be in corporate America, being how we need to be at home, the expectations. Do you find for most women like us that we end up losing our identity? Like
Uh-huh.
we don't know which one is authentic, which one is real, which one is
Hmm.
not. And I know you said it's a benefit,
Yep.
but for me, I also felt like it was kind of a curse.
Hmm. I think the work that I do in my office and with the clients that I see, because I do see a lot of like first generation women that come in with this really specific problem, right? And so the hardest thing is to integrate your both cultures without losing one or the other, right? And so really kind of like accepting that you're Mexican American. I think
Mhm.
that, and setting boundaries, right? Setting boundaries within both cultures.
Right.
For me, you're never going to be American.
Mm.
And so knowing that, putting that in the, oh, I don't have to strive and conform and perform to those standards because I'm never going to be seen as American anyways. What does that look like? Because instead of coming in and going, I'm going to take, the good parts from this culture and I'm going to try to and deny who I am and try to be this, American standard. I mean, you're never you're never going to walk in. You're not going to walk in and they're like, what is she doing here?
Right.
What- Right? It's just what it is. And so then owning it, integrating your culture, right? Integrating it and then being kind of like really proud of that,
Mhm.
right? Uh, I remember when I was working for the county and there's a lot of heads and we were talking about like, oh, they need to go to like a workshop and they need to do that. And I was like, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and refer this child and we're gonna refer this teen to this like workshop thing. They're gonna be able to get like some trade. And it's like Taller San Jose, they're good to go. And I would get this like, I'm sorry, what is Taller de San Jose? That is the name of the workshop. It's called Taller de San Jose, right?
Mhm.
They provide all these resources for teenagers who have had maybe like some type of like problems with like the law, but they're going to show them a trade. Like, and I was like, um, oh, it's Taller San Jose. And they're like, oh,
Yeah.
and I was like,
Yeah.
right. And so I had a choice to say, okay, I'm only going to say Taller San Jose, or I continue to say Taller de San Jose, or better known to you guys, Taller San Jose, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, I did not have to eventually say taller because I was saying it so often that they were like, "Oh yeah, Taller," right? Like, well, that's how you say it. I'm like, yeah, that's the name.
Yeah.
Because I can't even imagine that they're like, "Oh, who's taller?" Like, there has nothing to do with taller. It has to do with like workshop. Taller is workshop, right? And so, but it was one of those like, I always have a choice. You always have a choice to want to conform and
Mhm.
fail at it or just be authentic,
Yeah.
right? Take the
Yeah.
time to educate, take the time to be compassionate, to take the time to this is what it is. And so you're gonna learn. You're gonna learn how
Yeah.
to say it.
And it's crazy for me, with the Crown Act passing in California in 2020 and working in investment banking in New York, that was really strict. So I know for my situation might be different, but similar for some women. We were not allowed to wear our hair naturally.
Jeez.
So investment banking, you couldn't even get into the building unless you had pantyhose on. You could not show your
Oh, I
toes.
know.
You could only show from your elbow down. And so I understood that was a dress code. But in the HR policy, hair had to be neat,
And what does that mean?
straight,
Right.
neat, straight, just neat. So if you couldn't, black women, we couldn't wear braids. You damn sure couldn't have locks.
Hmm.
You're not even getting an interview if they saw you like
Oh
that.
yeah.
So then moving to California, SoCal, where it's like a little bit more loosely based, there were some industries where it's like, yeah, you can be your authentic self, you can bring your black culture in, but in commercial real estate in Southern California, Greater LA, yeah, it was the beginning of like, no, you can't,
Uh-huh.
you can't wear that. You can't
Uh-huh.
wear that. So I had to keep investing in wigs
My gosh. Yeah.
because I did
Yeah.
not, there's a whole nother episode of Black women having to straighten their hair, the perms, and the lie and the damage that it did to our health, our hair, our scalp, just all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's funny because now, after the 2020 Act, and now, I have my locks and they're flourishing. Now I can walk into those same offices today and it's like, oh, you have beautiful hair.
Right.
Like, I always had beautiful hair.
Uh-huh.
You just didn't allow me to wear it
Uh-huh.
at the time.
Uh-huh.
And I think for some women, especially for Black women, it's like, I'm not getting into that line of business because you have to wear the full uniform. And in the same breath, in order to get into corporate America, into those high positions, you have to wear the uniform. And hearing my father, my mom saying like, yeah, you have to wear it. Stop complaining.
Yeah. I mean, that is a reality, right? And so you got to play the game so you can change it. But that is the difference between conforming, assimilating, then I'm going in and I'm going to blow up the system little by little.
Yeah.
That's a different mentality, right? It's a completely different mentality. It is not how do I shrink myself? How do I make myself? How do I change my language? How do I change the way that I speak in order to sound more aligned with what I think they want, right? That is very different than, okay, I see what you
Right.
want. And
Right.
as soon as I get to the top, things will
Yeah.
change. Yeah.
And I think from Maiko's story, she just quietly kept reinventing herself and navigating through.
Yep.
Probably, maybe she complained to her friends and family, probably not family, or maybe not complained at all, but she just took it on the chin and it was like, all right, then I'm just going to keep going another way, which was admirable because she kept going towards her goals.
Yeah. And that was her personality type, right? So this is the part where she probably found herself moving up and having a lot of success in some of these job ventures that she was in because of her culture conditioning, right? Because that became that's second nature. I know how to turn it off. I know how to put my head down, do what I have to do. But her authentic self would creep up and go, remember, we don't want that. And then she can go like, oh, I'm right in the same place again. How did I get here?
Yeah.
Right. And so thank God for her. Thank God for her being authentic and her really kind of honoring her personality and who she was authentically that got her to where she is now.
So drive us home, Claudia. What is something for women, and especially women of color, women of different ethnicities? What's the lesson here?
It's
And what do
ownership.
we need? Ownership. And
We need
how do we
ownership.
navigate that? And what should we come home to?
Yeah. And so I always have my clients sit down and do what I call like, an inventory. Like really sit down with a piece of paper and put whatever the duality is that you're struggling with, put it down, put it on paper, make it aware, see it, right? So it might be my Mexican culture, it might be my, rich life, poor, like whatever it is, right? That you're struggling with this duality, right? It might be corporate life, it might be I'm working in corporate, but I'm this artist, like whatever the duality is that you have, put it down in paper and really own who your true authentic self is and lean into that. You don't have to give up anything, right? You don't have to make a choice about I'm either this or that. You can be all of it. And what does that look like if you integrate it?
Yeah, love that. Well, I'm excited about next week's guest.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So for anybody that's listening, we will see you next Friday. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. If this conversation resonated with you, you're not alone. That's exactly why this space exists. Elevate Within is for the high-achieving women in the messy middle, the space between who you were and who you're becoming. The architecture of reinvention is an invitation to pause, to reflect, to heal, and to begin the process of unbecoming everything you were told you had to be so you could become who you were always meant to be. Be sure to join us each Friday for our Architecture of Reinvention Roundtable discussions, where we continue these conversations and explore the deeper lessons, insights, tools, and reflections that emerge from each story. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube so you never miss an episode. For Apple Podcast listeners, I would be grateful if you leave a rating or review. It helps reach more women who may need this conversation right now. And if you'd like to go deeper, join us on Substack at Elevate Within. There, you'll find weekly essays and honest conversations about burnout, grief, reinvention, resilience, healing, and the messy middle. Free subscribers receive full access to all public content, while paid subscribers receive bonus essays, early access to upcoming series, behind-the-scenes recording, and opportunities to engage directly with the community. If you know of a woman who needs to hear this conversation today, please share it with her. You can find me on LinkedIn under Sandra Davis, on Substack at Elevate Within, and if you're in need of fractional COO work or would like to book a discovery call on how I can help, you can reach out to me at elevateopsadvisory.com. You'll find all those links in the show notes. Until next time, keep elevating personally, professionally, and from within.